Welcome back to the Troubleshooting Life podcast. I'm your host, Jay Peters, my co-host, Craig Poston, where we talk about various topics, sharing our experiences on life and finances.
What's up, man?
What is going on?
Not much. Yeah, how's things going?
Well, pretty good. I was thinking, like, I knew you were probably asked about like goals and stuff, and I was like, man, I don't think they move too much, man. We're just like not necessarily busy, just kind of doing a lot of stuff like this week, mostly just work and stuff, but trying to get the other place ready and get contractors in over there to fix up the flooring, stuff like that, and making sure, like, I got a pod ready for like stores and stuff. I gotta make sure my roommates are taken care of and stuff like that. So that's been most of my week, just making sure everything's kind of lining up and communicated properly. And yeah, nothing too big this week. What about you, man?
I mean, been a week, so a lot of times the goals don't move as much, but still the same thing, just trying to gather contacts for my property, because basically this is like I'm using this as the foundation, figure out how to gain the contacts, understand who I need to talk to, what CPA is the best CPA, who's the best law firm that deals with real estate, those things, trying to look into all those items so I can start to do that scale thing, right? So basically, as you in a sense, like a franchise, right? It's a business in a box. They learn how to put all the processes and policies together in one space and then sell it to you. In a sense, I'm gonna do that for myself and then scale and then see if I can repeat, and wash and repeat, right? And just keep going.
No, that's good. That's good, man.
Yeah. So and that's the thing, like taking the time to sit down, because obviously we still do the 9 to 5 thing, so that takes time.
It takes time, man.
Yeah, and family, all these things take time. Like my Saturday was pretty much, might as well just call the shot. So that's why we didn't do this on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And the kids had basketball games, so I was just like, okay, well, and then after that we just hung out together. When went and ate, just did things together. Like just act like we didn't have anywhere to be at that point after we did all the games. So
I just chilling and stuff, not really worrying about the hustle and bustle. But no, that's good, man. It's definitely the quality time and stuff with the kiddos.
So and that's pretty much how everything's going. So, and that's the same thing with the goal. I think we talked about, kind of almost forcing myself to get myself started with certifications. So I already I paid for one voucher, and that's basic, so I can make myself get going. Yeah.
Now, dare I ask about the book?
Yeah. That's it. That definitely, I'm gonna have to. I definitely hadn't started that. Yeah. I mean, I had some basically an outline, and that's about it, and a title. Maybe I had a title. I might have had a title, and that's probably about as far as I've gotten on that. And then what I'm thinking is probably what I hear a lot of people do when it comes to books. They just have to section off time, and that's the book time.
Yeah, running time. Yeah,
and then the other thing that people would do is like, they take 3 months or something like that, knock it out, just working on that. I mean, it's just, everyone have these different avenues, when you're at this different stage in your life. I don't know if I can take 3 months off without and not have to go to another job. I mean, I could take 3 months off and not worry about bills, but like that's not the same as I mean, staying with the same company.
No, so what I was saying, like a lot of people that were writing and stuff, and kind of made me think about like you writing your book, was that they just wrote like it necessarily wasn't like on topic or anything, but like they would write like, say at a minimum like a page, right? I think that they were speaking more in words rather than pages. Yeah. But like write a page a day, right? Just write it, right? Like whatever thoughts kind of come to your mind during that time, or whenever like say like, so for example, like yesterday I was getting some work done on Adri's car. So like I was just sitting there and I was just on the computer just like writing down notes, and like that's when I was texting you and stuff. I was like, hey, I'm doing this, and this. And just doing like random stuff. Like it wasn't like structured or anything. It was just like time to kind of like brainstorm and like write stuff down. So I have like the Google Notes and stuff going, and it was just writing. So that's just one thing I've heard of people doing. like when they're trying to write a book or when they're writing, because just like one guy where he's like, it's not hard for him to write a book. He just writes, like he just writes, and I'm sure there's a difference between like fictional and non-fictional writers, like for the genres and stuff. Like say, Stephen King versus like Warren Buffett or some sort of business person that writes books, because it's different. Like it's not necessarily as creative when you're doing like nonfiction, right? But it's more like, the story you're telling, like for most business people, might be dry, right? As in like the content may not seem like sexy or exciting or whatever it is, right? But yeah, man, I'd say just write. It's like on your phone, write, and on a notepad, write, whatever it is.
Yeah, but I think it's still one of those where you have to make it a priority. If it's not at the top of the goals, it won't get hit right away.
Yeah, or make it the only focus, right? Like, I mean, you can only have so many goals.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily split your focus 8 different ways, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if the focus right now, and you can think of it as like seasons, right?
Yeah.
Like how, we as people have seasons. San Antonio doesn't necessarily have seasons. It's either cold or high. And it's not even cold. It's like lukewarm. But yeah, no, think of it like that way. Like you have a season of like real estate, right? Where you're focusing on that. You have a season of like working on your certifications, professional stuff. You have a season of writing, right? And it's so like it's not like you're not focusing on all those things. It's just that you're putting one as like you said, as a priority or primary focus. And so like all these things are necessarily on the back burner, but like your main thing that you're working on is taking up most of your attention, most of your space. And like for example, like kids got school right at different time intervals and like seasons, right? Seasons of sports, I should say. Sorry, I don't know if that's cool, but sports wise, right? And then so that takes up a lot of your attention, right? You can't necessarily do a lot of the free things that you could. But just take it as cyclical.
Yeah, no, I can gather that, because like what I could do is shorten a list of goals, see if you can hit goals quarterly, and then put that one on the list of priorities, because it's quarter to work on that goal.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a better way to look at it. And the focus would be there at that point, because that's the goal for that quarter,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I'm going to ask you too. Like, how often do you check in with your goals? Because last year, man, I said I was going to check in with my goals every quarter. That didn't happen. As you could tell with the last pod, or probably even previous pods, I dropped most of the goals. And it's not like they weren't attainable or anything. It's just like I didn't evaluate that. What was I willing to do to accomplish that goal? And / did this goal even not necessarily mean something to me, but did I value that goal at all? Like, did I really value playing the harmonica? No, I just thought it was something different and something new to learn. So, and I thought
like the mind
different. I thought different and new would make something like the mind grow, or talents grow, whatever it is. But like I think the saying is like your energy goes, or your focus goes where your energy flows, right? So like whatever you really focus on, that's where your energy is going to put more towards, right? So if you're really focused on getting into shape, then you'll work out a little bit more, or you'll have more intention behind your workouts. You'll create a nutrition plan, whatever it is, right? Because that's where your energy is right now. That's where your focus is right now. But at that point, when I first heard it, I thought it was like always have one focus and never have like another one, or not necessarily don't have another one, but if your focus is like say making money, make all your efforts towards making money, whether that's your 9 to 5, whether that's real estate, whether that's investing, whatever it is. And then I started hearing about like cyclical or seasonal type of things. Like, there's a season where you were in college, right? There was a season where you were like full-time in the military, active duty. There's a season where you were getting a 9 to 5 job, right? There's a season of learning. There's a season of earning, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I just call it a different phases of life, because it seems like because you're growing I feel like you grow to a different person every decade, but that may not work for everyone. But someone might think that I can do it in 5 years or whatever. But but if I go back and look on the last decade, and I'm like, well, my thought pattern was different. Everything, the focus was on this, and now my focus is on something else now, it's on building a business versus like just trying to be part of active duty, be part of the military, and making sure that I'm successful in my goals there. Everything, and some things carry over, like definitely being a good father and husband. Those goals carry carry on because you want to make sure. That's something I try to check in with myself too, to make sure I'm not being a terrible parent, which most of us aren't. It's just something personal we feel. And then the same thing is like, being a good husband, not neglecting, certain emotions because you've been together so long. And especially you being in something like the military, you learn how to turn off those, those emotions. And then you forget you need to turn it back on for the person that you're with,
Yeah. A separator. I think it's called code switching, where you have a different basically language that you speak, right? Like when you're like in a professional setting, in a military setting, versus like when you're more like a romantic relationship setting. I know that those are hard switches, because just think about like the amount of time you spend at work, right, in comparison to the amount of time you may see your kids or your spouse. Then like people don't want to like acknowledge it, but it's true. Like especially active duty, you're definitely spending more than 8 hours with people at work or people around you, right? Like, that's just reality of it. And I think like people have done the numbers and like done studies, is that they're like couples that don't work together and don't work in the same industry either, they'll spend at max like I think an hour and a half to 2 hours a day with their actual spouse, like averaged out. And they're saying that like about 45 minutes of that, so about half of that is like watching a TV show or something like that. So their problem isn't necessarily like space between each other, because there's tons of that. It's more like they no longer have that connection to each other. So they become a little too like familiar with each other, become more like roommates and shit like that rather than partners. And so like you just kind of have to find that balance. Like if that's the reality where you two are both working and you're in different industries, how can you create more closeness towards each other, right? And it obviously, like, say if you're both working, like say you work for the same company or you're working in the same industry, like how do you create that space, right? Because like I've been saying, like moderation is a big thing. And we kind of brought it up in like previous podcasts, like even moderation in working out, right? That's a big thing. You just kind of have to find like that nice balance of space and familiarity to where it's a little bit more cohesive. There's less arguments, less disgruntled discussions and stuff like that.
One of the things too that with goals you can it's there to stretch you, right? So when you're pushing yourself, you're becoming a new person. Sometimes you don't even realize what you can and can't do, because I definitely in the military, as I was growing in the military, I was realizing that I was mentally blocking myself on a lot of things. And with that, you don't understand that you can do so much more. Like I didn't understand that I could run faster than I was acting. Like I was telling myself that that's too much for me. I might pass out, or
I couldn't do any more push-ups, or at a certain amount of time I couldn't do X amount of push-ups. And they're not true, but like you said, they're mental blockers.
And then running faster. Like when it comes, like you would think that you would pass out by trying to run half a foot, run sprints, but like say the size of a half a football field, right? So 50 yards, right? Basically you're relay racing 50 yards and then running back in a sense, right? And you basically you're giving it your all, and a lot of times I didn't realize that I could do that. Like I was like pushing hard, and I lasted the whole time. Now like that knew that I knew I was in great shape at that point. But it was all because I was stretching myself. It wasn't that I was telling myself mentally that I can't do it. And it kind of leads into what we're talking about this week, right? Our topic, create your own adversity. Because that definitely helps out with that growth, the growth mindset in a sense, right?
And I think like kind of before we go into the topic, like something that you and I experienced kind of similarly is boot camp, right? Where you'll realize like most people, they just want to quit. Right? Because it's such a shock to them that like, not sleeping for a certain amount of time, or having to be up at certain times, or doing like certain activities like consistently, or maybe even inconsistently, like stuff that you normally just wouldn't do, or people like you have to listen to certain people because of a certain thing, or because of like a certain rank and stuff like that. Like those are all like different shocks. And I think some people, they'll identify that it may be hard, but they don't actually understand the feeling of how hard, right? Yeah. So they'll go into it with the mindset like, yeah, this isn't going to be easy, but they may say that and then they still go through it. And I was like, damn, I still want to give up. Right. But it's because the saying versus the feeling of how hard it is are two different things. Like you said, running faster, right? You probably knew it was hard, right? That's what the mental blocker, right? It's like, man, I couldn't do this. But then you didn't feel how hard or maybe how easy it was, right? And like how easy it would be to improve, right? Same with like going to the gym, going to school, whatever it is, right? There's certain like thresholds, and most of them are mental blockers, right? Not necessarily like physical or emotional blockers, right? Because those are probably have higher thresholds, but the mental blocker is like, I can only get to this level, or my mind is only saying I can get to this level, which isn't true, right? And some people will say like they kind of stop having those mental blockers when they see someone else do it, right? Like I think one of the things is like having like a 4-minute mile, I think used to be stated as impossible until someone did it, and then other people started doing it, right? It's just like things that aren't true that we kind of make true. And I think if people were not necessarily focusing on the statements, they focused on like the actual feeling of it. So like instead of the statement of like, this is hard, it was like, well, how hard could it be? And am I willing to feel how hard it'll be, right? Or how difficult it'll be.
What that we call like a mental pioneer, because you're like you kind of push, you do something that nobody else would do, but only because they think that it's too hard, mentally too hard, or you kind of break through, and like you're like always the trendsetter, the pioneer for everything. So that's to me that's something I would have to. I don't want to say I probably do it in some things, but like that's something that my mind has to grow to become that mental pioneer, where like I could just keep coming up with my own ideas. I create my own Guinness Book World of Records, right? Like like mentally, like, no, I'm breaking something else. I'm breaking something, and I just keep going. That's something that I would like to just train myself to just constantly keep doing that. Yeah, do it every now and again, but like not all the time.
So for me, it was like more like realistic expectations, right? Where like I just try to take on as much stress as possible. Because at that, I already know at some point in the future, I'm going to be stressed. So like I'm going to be in a car accident. I'm going to be, I don't know, doing something. Someone's going to steal from me, whatever it is, right? And I know it's going to be stressful, but like it's expected. Like I don't expect everyone to be nice, right? I don't expect to not get into a car accident, right? That's what stuff like insurance is for, right? So like when I go through those things, I'm not panicking, right? I'm not in a specific mode where I can't think straight. Logical and concise on when it happens. So I'm like, well, if someone stole from me, I got insurance, right? And call the police, whatever it is, right? I know the steps to take, so I'm not in this mode where I have to run around and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So going on to the topic, Great Joe University. So it was the first one, because you actually did the outline on this one. You want to start out with what you were thinking?
Yeah, so like Create Your Own University, this one, I can't remember if I heard this or if it was just something that came to me. A lot of these ones, like topics I come up with, like, it's just stuff that I overhear in other podcasts. Not saying I'm stealing content from their podcasts. It was just like good ideas or good, just things to kind of talk about in general. And this one like kind of resonated with me because I did create my own adversity, as in like I made life harder on myself than I needed it to be. And the reason why I say that is like, I came from a, middle class family. It's not like I came from like a incredibly impoverished family, like, white picket fence type of family. Like they have a house, they have, jobs, so like blue collar jobs, right? So it's not like I really ever struggled. Like I never wondered like about the next meal and stuff like that. And I'm not, like I said, they weren't the best off, but like when I was in high school, I wanted to go to college, right? That was just like something that was ingrained in me, like, hey, you got to go to college, right? I have Asian parents, so they're very like education focused, as in like you have to do education in some sort of form, and college is like the only way they knew how to like vocalize that or focus on. So I wanted to do that. I got accepted into colleges. It just wasn't the degree I wanted to, and one of them I did want to go to was in Rochester, New York. But before I was about to accept it, I got into a car accident, right? And that like made my parents like really worry about like me going out of state. This is when we were here in Texas. So I just said no, right? And there was a few of them where like kind of self-sabotaging, like I didn't submit the college stuff in time, so I ended up joining the military, right? Because like couldn't really get scholarships, or I wasn't focused on getting scholarships. There's a lot of things I should have done and I didn't do. If college was the focus, I just didn't do them, right? I'm not going to make any excuses. I just didn't do them. And so joined the military, came back, and honestly, I could have stayed with my parents, right? Like I could have just chilled with my parents. I had gone to school. Like I had every intention to go to school, and I had already signed up for school and everything like that. And so instead of trying to pay my bills and go to school, I could have just stayed with my parents and gone to school and had a part-time job for X amount of time, right, without worrying too much. But instead, I decided to move out, right? And the reason why was because I didn't feel like I was being treated the way I want to be treated, right? I just came back from active duty, living by yourself. It doesn't feel good to be treated like a child when you feel like you're an adult, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it is what it is. So I moved out, and I was not prepared to move out. I'm pretty sure I've said it a few times where like where my job I was making making $1,200 a month, right, max, and my rent itself was over $800 a month, right, and that's not including like utilities like electricity, groceries, gas that I needed for my car, right? So it became hard. Like I made that adversity, right? I made myself basically poor, broke, right? Because like if I'm paying $800 a month or over $800 a month for rent, and my pay is only $1,200, like really, what can I really spend money on? Like nothing, right? Like I could probably even tell you, like, so I think my rent was $864. Gas at that time for me a month was about like $125, $150. Insurance was about the same, about $150. Internet was $75. Like as you can tell, like these numbers just keep like adding on and adding on. So like there was no way, not necessarily no way there. At that time, I was not in a position to pay for like groceries and stuff like that. So I definitely like ate very minimally. And then I was at school on top of that. So like, working 9 to 5 and then going to school, adding more stress to myself. So like I added all these adversities to myself, and I don't regret it. I definitely don't, because it definitely helps me grow a lot quicker. And the reason why I say create your own adversity is because I did. And in my opinion, and maybe just only in my opinion, it helped me grow a lot. I would say, definitely, create your own adversity. Like make your life harder. Why not? Like, why would you? Then other people, like, they try to fight for like an easier life, and I'm like, why? Like it's good to say and it's good to have. Like, you want an easy and comfortable life, but what is that going to gain you, right? Because to me, comfort is just like the enemy of growth.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, comfort, like you just said, hey, it's the enemy of growth. But I think it's more is that, right? You have to train some people have to train their brain. Some people have it, right? To keep that growth mindset. A lot of times in reality, putting myself in a new situation that I possibly shouldn't be in, definitely has grown me. I've told you the story. I haven't told, our listeners the story about how when I was, I want to say 19 or so, getting my own apartment. So being in Mississippi, a lot of times you can't sign apartments, you can't get loans until you're 21. But here in Texas, it's a little different, right? But there, since I was 19, couldn't quite get an apartment. I actually found a roommate that was 25. The apartment wasn't a super expensive apartment, but it was something I've never done before. Never had a roommate. Never lived with anyone outside of my own family. The only thing that I knew that I didn't like home situation. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like I was getting beat or anything like that. I just knew that it was, in a sense, like a mental prison. All right. Like if things I wanted to do, I couldn't do. And I know I wasn't trying to do bad things. It was more along the lines of just some ideas I wanted to do for growth in my life. My parents didn't necessarily agree with my ideas, but I agreed with my ideas. And, I should be allowed to fail if I want to fail. The thing is, they had a different mindset. They had a bit more of a secure mindset. So where they wanted, like, they want to know that I'm okay. They wanted to know this, I'm more like, let's just see first. Don't tell me it's bad out there. Don't tell me bills are crazy when in reality, you don't know what my bills will become. So that was like my first taste of gaining my own adversity, pretty much. I created my own adversity. I basically just jumped out there. Yeah, it was not smooth. I could tell you that much. The smoothest part was the signing the contract and having the money down for the deposit or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Those are the easiest things, but then you still got to deal with actual roommate. And if your roommate doesn't have the same mentality you have, now there's a clash there. I mean, I was left in that apartment by myself for a little bit because I had a close friend of mine and my roommate, they made a deal because we all worked at the same place. They made a deal without telling me. One was going to move out and the other one was going to move in because the other one wants to move with his fiance. And which, well, I was cool with it. I was like, well, I mean, bills are getting paid. That's cool. But then that's the same thing with my close friend. He, it was different for him also. And I think he still wanted his lifestyle that he had when he lived with his mom, where he can spend whatever he wants. But then once you become an adult, right? You're there, but now you gotta so you gotta all right, should I buy this or shouldn't I buy that? And I didn't know his total financial situation anyway. He obviously he was still coming up with the rent, but then it got to a certain point where then it switched again where they were trying to. He was like, I need to leave, and I was like, okay. And I think my old roommate was supposed to move back in or something. It was something crazy. Now, how time, over time, right? You lose parts of the story.
Yeah, the story.
Yeah. But then basically at that point I want to say a couple of months, I was in the apartment by myself having to worry about things on my own. But guess what? I didn't get scared. I didn't stop doing what I was doing. Yeah, it's just tough because I knew I didn't have all the money for it. And I hadn't got to that because I was also trying to go to school too. Well, I was going to school. So that was tough. So everything, the adversity was there.
Yeah.
But I mean, in reality, it actually made me grow because then I was allowed to just, when it's time to do something else, my brain goes like, okay, let's just try it first and not just stop, So yeah, that was like the, the Cliff Notes version of that story. But a lot of it was where I had to, and that's where that idea too, that story came from, where I had to wash my clothes in the tub because I didn't have money. That's where, So, and that was all during that time, and most people, they probably wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, that's when I learned how to survive off of $50 every, 2 weeks or so or something like that. I couldn't remember how often I bought groceries, but it was something like that where I would just spend $50 on I'm gonna get some lunch meat, hot dog, ramen noodles, stuff like that. Yeah. So, and basically I showed the signs that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this happen for me. And I was still out there looking for jobs. I was trying to work for banks. I was trying to find anything that can just get me at least in the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah.
So that's the first taste of that. Yeah. And then I know one of our points though, right, where it's talking about it promotes empathy, right? I could see that. Joining the military made me kind of understand where my dad was coming from. When he would tell me these stories about when he was younger about certain things, and I didn't necessarily get it, but but when I actually joined the military, I was like, oh, okay, I see where he's coming from. Okay. Now I understand why, he's always trying to tell these jokes. Sometimes they're corny.
Yeah, they try.
Yeah. I was like, because usually your day, right, because things can get stressful, you're trying to make sure that you're having fun and getting through the suck. As a lot of us say, yeah. So, I don't know about you, man. What do you?
So like you said, the one of the first parts is promote empathy, right? And a lot of these parts are from like a Forbes article that I was reading through, because it's true, you can relate to people that have gone through similar things, right? That's why people in the military, you got a brothers in arms type of mentality. You have a certain level of respect or understanding of what they've been through, right? Even in the minute part, right? And even within them, you'll have your own little cliques or factions. Army people understand what Army has to go through, Navy is understood what Navy has to go through, right? And, certain units, if you're part of the 82nd Airborne, you're like, oh yeah, I've been through that. Or if you've been to a certain base, stuff like that, right? It's just like, I think it just promotes that, like, the brotherhood or camaraderie between each other. And it makes, certain communications really easy, right? Like, so like if you ever meet someone and, they don't really have anything of interest or similar interest to you, it's kind of hard to maybe spark up a conversation. It feels very awkward. Right. But when you, like, when they say, hey, I'm in the Navy, oh, like, oh yeah, I was in the Army, and, just chop it up, right? Being in the reserves, whatever it is. Like, there's like certain barriers that you break when that happens. And like, like you said with your parents, right? You get to find like new respect for certain things because, as a kid, you don't know. Yeah, there's certain things you just don't know. Like, you don't know what it's like to be a parent. You don't know what it's like to be, a working adult, having to do certain things. So, like, when you do that, like, when you start paying your own bills, you're like, oh, well, man, my parents had to do this for however many years, right? And they had to try to feed me. Like, this is pretty rough. So, you just gain that mutual respect between more people and each other that I think adversity just really helps you. Like, there's a different type of respect that you get for people that have, are on their own renting stuff or owning stuff, right? Versus someone that's just like staying at home with their parents. And if that's like your lifestyle to like stay at home with your parents, that's cool. But then there's people that you're not going to be able to relate to. There's conversations you may not be a part of. Yeah. So I think, promoting that level of empathy within people is really good. That adversity really helps out.
Yeah. And then like I think another point you had on here was it's post-traumatic growth, positive growth due to stressful or traumatic situations. Yeah. Think about it. If you can't pay your bill or you feel like you can't pay your bills, it's not that you can't pay your bills, right? You feel like you can't, you start to go into a different mindset. Definitely when I was working in like Dave & Buster's, basically as a server, when it was time for rent, and I was short, man. I mean, I switched my mode switch. I was already kind of a motivated person anyway. My mode switched, and I would like make phone calls and was like, "Hey, can I take a shift? Can I take a shift?" Yeah. So like, rent's coming up. I don't tell them rent's coming up, but like I know rent's coming up. So then I start to buckle down and figure out what I want to do. And I would take weekday shifts, and a lot of people didn't want weekday shifts; they wanted weekend shifts. So like that's why it was easier to do that. And most of the time, it either is people who are college students or people who don't have a large, responsibility. So like if they're working during the week, they're kind of like, yeah, sure, take this, And I was like, well, I'm about to make this rent, Yeah. And then sometimes I lucked out, right? And it turned out to be a busy night, and it's just random. Sometimes you don't know what Wednesday is going to be a busy night, but it ended up happening. Like everyone all of a sudden wants to come out and have fun.
Yeah. And get more tips, whatever it is, you get a lot more hours.
Yeah. So it's always, but it's one of those things though. If I didn't get on the ball and like, change to the situation, then how would I know that some nights are busy like that where I would actually make my, end up paying my rent on time? Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what situation have you been in where, that causes growth for you?
I mean, kind of the situation I described, right? But I think a lot of people go through it, especially in the military, because everyone hears about what's known as PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, where they go through a certain thing, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be at war. It could be, and it's not necessarily to the military, right? It's just, the specific audience I'm saying it is, because it can happen at any time. But this is just the positive rendition of post-traumatic stress disorder. Like the trauma still happens, like the traumatic event still happens, but it's how you take it, right? So like, for example, if like, say if you're in a pool, don't know how to swim, and you end up like drowning, right? Someone has to pull you out, right? That is definitely could be a traumatic situation, a traumatic event. But you can take it in two ways. You can be like, oh, I'm never going in a pool ever again. I'm never going near water ever again. Or you'd be like, well, I should learn how to swim, right? So that's the post-traumatic growth version of it, is that this thing happened to me and I didn't let it debilitate me, right? I didn't let it handicap my entire life, right? Because now every time you see a pool, you're like, I can't go near there, right? Or if you look at the ocean and you're like, it looks nice, I'm not going in there, right? Or you'd be like, oh man, I remember that time I was drowning, like, but now I can swim, right? And and I'm great, right? And I that's just like the thing, like, because that did happen to me. Like when I was a kid, like I jumped into the pool and I had like a paddle board, and then I thought I could swim in the deep end, couldn't. ended up getting pulled out like later, but like it didn't scare me. And maybe it was because like, my entire family, like I said, I grew up in Hawaii. So like swimming was just part of life. So like I didn't, but I can see like people that didn't grow up in like certain areas and that could debilitate them like quickly. Like, man, I'll never want to go in the pool ever again. And why would I ever want to go in a pool ever again or in water? So I'm sure I have like more examples, but that was like,
and now that kind of makes me feel like my story was not quite to what your point was, because it's like, now that you explained it like that, post-traumatic, and my post-traumatic growth story would be like when I lost my car. When I say lost my car, it's repossessed. Right. So I lost my car, and that whole thought, first you think it's stolen, and you're like, you go into this panic, and that's that, right? But then when you realize, it sinks in, you're like, okay, all right, I couldn't afford it anyway, or my situation was bad anyway, right?
Yeah.
But now, from that post-traumatic stress, I actually do a pretty good financial, I adjusted to it financially, right? Yeah. So now when I finance a car, I basically already look at, I'm not going to pay it to term. And I found out that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do anyway. They never pay anything to term. They basically, they get it at the longest, the longest term they can get, but they don't pay it to term. And because of that traumatic stress, now I actually kind of look at it like that too. I'll just like, unless the payment's still going to be small, even if I made it short, I'll do it. But then like, you can make it where you have the safety net of the smaller payment because you put it in long term, but then you pay it off in 2 years, like the focus changes to make sure it's always, so like, that's why my cars are paid off. And I try to, say maybe it's not that, but no, it is that.
Hey everyone, quick interruption. I just wanted to say from both Craig and I, thank you for taking the time to listen to us and our random rambling about life. If you have enjoyed this and think even one other person will enjoy this, then please share out this link, whether you found us on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. It costs no money and little time, but would have a great positive impact for our podcast and brand. All right, enough with the shameless plug. Let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah, and then on to our next point, right? Self-efficiency.
So I thought it said self-efficiency, and it's actually self-efficacy, right?
Yeah,
I'm just so like...
Yeah, I mean, hey, I knew what you were saying, so it's fine, man. It's okay. You're all good, man. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, that's okay. This is what the detriment to not reading is, that you definitely don't read the entire thing, and you kind of come up with your own words on certain things. So like I read self-efficiency, and then it's so funny because on the article, it has the definition of self-efficacy right afterwards.
Yeah,
I still wrote self-efficiency, so I thought
efficacy. Actually, no, that's me, man. No, you have efficacy on here. Yeah,
I just changed it.
You changed it. Oh, yeah. Man, you look at it. Don't do me like that, man. Yeah. I know I saw that because you sent me a text.
It's a efficiency, and then I fixed it on there because I noticed that I was like, man, maybe I did it wrong because my phone was like auto-correcting to efficacy. I was like, why is it correcting to efficacy? Like, I don't even know what the hell that is. Like, I've heard the terms, but I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it now. It's like, no, it is efficacy. Okay. Yeah. All right, our next point is that's efficacy. See, and I'm jacking it up. You believe and have confidence that you can perform actions on your own without a lot of assistance.
Yeah.
That's probably me. Yeah. Sometimes I like to put myself in the deep water and then like, I need some help now.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like, it gives you a certain level of confidence. So, like, maybe you've had these conversations, maybe you haven't, with like other soldiers and stuff, where they feel like they can't rent a house, they can't own a house, they can't pay certain bills, they can't do certain things, right, without you, right, or without your help, right? Like, I can't do this task because you're not here to help me out, right? Where self-efficacy is the belief that you can do certain tasks without necessarily needing everyone, or it's just the belief, or the belief or confidence you have in yourself to do or produce something.
You talking about like if you produce something, you try to produce something that you have no knowledge at all about, but you have the confidence to do it. Is that it?
No. So part of confidence is having the knowledge and knowing, right? So if you don't have knowledge and you still have confidence, that's not confidence. That's stupidity, like 100%. Like that's not, because you're not actually confident. Like it's done. Like, because I promise you, that's not confidence. How in any world is that confidence if you have no idea what you're doing?
Now, there's a difference between like if you read a book about it, if you watch a YouTube video about it, then yeah, you have a level of confidence. But if you're like, man, I'm gonna fly a plane and you don't even know how to drive a car, yeah, no, that's not the same. Like,
no, you're right. It's just funny though to actually be able to like say that. Oh yeah, no, I can do that. I've never seen that before. It's like that commercial about the you would stay in was it like Lakita Inn or something like that? Like you stayed in a hotel and then like, oh no, it's a Holiday Inn, right? It's like, and then like you wake up and you have like the confidence to knock out whatever it is or something like that. It was one of those hotel commercials. That's what made me think about that.
Get a good night's sleep, and now you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. No, I mean, I see, and that's kind of a hard one because I believe you should always have a level of confidence to say you could do something, as long as you've done, like at least done the task before, or you've been studying.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, you can have the level of confidence, but if you've never paid rent before, you've never paid bills before, you've never paid your own insurance, stuff like that. What level of confidence do you really have, right? But going through those certain adversities, like say those specific things, I'm not saying those are adversities. I'm just saying like that's just like a specific adversity I had to go through, or I forced myself to when I didn't have money, right? And it's more like the difference or the spectrum of not having money and still having to do those things, right? Versus having money now and still being able to do those things. That's different, right? But having the self-efficacy to do, and it doesn't have to be necessarily paying bills, right? So if we go back to the thing about swimming or like paying your car, right? You now have the self-efficacy that I know how to pay my own car off, right? Yeah. I know how to swim, right? That's just what it promoted in you because you went through a specific event or a specific events.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, man. I'm just joking around, man. Yeah. So yes, that a lot of the adversities do put you in that situation. Definitely military, because that's probably why I keep a calm head about a lot of things. As I've learned in the military, where breathing helps a lot with controlling your heart rate. So, and then same things like, so if you're doing combatives, right? To keep yourself from being winded when you're while you're rolling, as they call it rolling. You can call it a bounce, whatever you want to call it, right? But in the process, it's very exhausting to sit there and grapple with somebody in combatives. But the only way to continue on so you're not exhausted is by breathing. If you can control your breathing throughout the whole thing. Same thing with running. A lot of these things came from dealing with those issues, that adversity of running really, really fast, and then you gas out, right? But to extend that stamina, or to actually use that stamina and that endurance, is control the breathing, supplying the oxygen to the muscles, and you know what I'm saying? You can constantly keep going. So that's so yes, self-efficacy is something that you gain in this process.
Man, it was such a word that I didn't even know that I was forgetting how to pronounce it.
You messed me up, man. You messed me up. It's all right.
Because I was like, man, why is it self-efficiency? Is that even a thing, self-efficiency? I was like, self-sufficient. I would think that's a word, but I was like, and then I re-looked at it, I was like, efficacy. I was like, whatever. I was like, damn words. Yeah. I was going to blame it on like my public school education or some shit like
that. Well, you can't. Because now you're an adult. And now you're in control of everything.
It doesn't mean anything. I can't. Well, who cares about the bachelor's and master's? It all stems from the public school education.
No. Once you become an adult, you control your destiny after that point now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, people still make excuses.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the whole point of having to deal with adversity. If it teaches you that you're no longer that product of your environment. You're no longer that apple that falls, doesn't fall far from the tree. I'd say, right? Because a lot of these traits we pick up from our parents, our teachers, our people that are mentors that are around us. But once you completely it's time to separate and try to execute on some of these thoughts and plans that we have. It requires you to grow mentally, and you have to just you in a sense change. Everything changes, and you no longer can kind of blame whoever was in your past that did this. Now, yes, there is sense of trauma that that stays with us, that mental trauma that keeps us from doing certain things. And I kind of like our last podcast where it was talking about now I forget what we were talking about. Self-sabotage, yes. And it was it's a mental thing, right?
Yeah.
And it could come from some of that post-traumatic growth that's not positive. That's actually negative. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man. And then another thing that, creating your own adversity does, at least it did for me, is that it promoted finding the silver linings in situations, right? And I'll give you like a tangible example is that a couple months ago, like I had a pipe burst, right? I don't know if I ever talked about it on the podcast or if I just brought it up, but of course, about it at the house, and I've never dealt with that, but at the end of it, I was like, well, I have insurance. Let's call the insurance, right? Where I can get a plumber, get it fixed, whatever it is, right? And then, calling the insurance. And then I realized, insurance will cover like a decent amount of it, right? Like a good chunk of it, minus your deductible or premium, whatever it is. So I wasn't stressed. And, I was like, well, I get a new floor out of it. Like that's the silver lining is like, I got a new floor. Yeah. Insurance covers most of it. And I don't have of course I'm still stressed, but it doesn't like affect me as much. And that was a silver lining. And some people were like when I was telling them about it, or when they heard about it, they're like, man, that sucks. I was like, I was like, I get a new floor.
Because that's one problem, but then you gain something in the end. In a sense, it canceled it out because those things can get expensive. The redoing a floor, which I found out because I was getting quotes and I didn't realize just for the square footage that we have, and we're only doing part with I'm gonna say part, basically the whole bottom floor, and some were talking about $11,000, to do it. Yeah, and that's demo, the product that we purchased, and then the labor. Yeah, and I was like, dang, that's getting expensive now. And finally I came up with an idea, basically looking at Pinterest. Where a lot of people, I didn't realize a lot of people was doing this anyway. They were like, just remove the carpet and just run the tile with the wood floor and it actually looked good. So I was like, okay. And
call you a Pinterest poster.
Hey, sometimes you gotta, have a few, get some ideas, man. Like I'm telling you, you kind of get stuck, because you're in your own mind. And I mean, you can ask people about it, but not everybody knows about it. But then with the internet, you have so many people, and then people just like, hey, I'm gonna just let me let people see what I've been working on. And you're like, man, that's a great idea. And you don't do exactly what they do. Some people do follow their actual directions, but it just gives me an idea that I'll go create my own thing. I then know oh yeah, kind of like what you're saying earlier. Now that I know I can do it, that's what I'm gonna do. You're running that 4-minute mile, you're like, I haven't seen anyone do it in my area, but now I've seen someone do it and I'm gonna try it, right? And that was pretty much the same situation with the flooring. I didn't know. I thought you need to demo everything and lay down something everything new.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of their problems aren't necessarily problems. It's just they have a lack of an idea to solve the problem. Yeah. And so one example that I got from Jim Rohn is that not having money is not a problem, right? Or not making money is not a problem. The problem is that you don't have an idea on how you can use your talent to create money or to make money, right? So because you could solve a lot of your things with just a new idea or a different perspective, right? And instead of thinking well, I don't have money, I can't make money. You can't make money in that specific job, maybe. You can't make money in that specific company, but you can make money doing something else. You can make money with another company. So yeah, that's not the problem. It's just the lack of an idea is the problem.
Yeah, so I was listening to a podcast and it was along the same lines as that. The guest on there basically was saying that awareness, the difference between a person that makes $100,000 a year and someone that doesn't make $100,000 a month is the awareness, right? Yeah. If you were aware that you could do it, you would do it. And that's the same thing, right? If you knew exactly what it was, or if you've seen it before, then you would be able to figure it out. Yeah. So no, that actually sounds like it's a good thing to keep in mind when we're making decisions about our, financial situation, about having, where basically you give yourself your own glass ceiling instead of looking, you're looking to see if there's a glass ceiling,
Yeah. You're not even looking up. You're just kind of feeling something, and you can't see it, but you feel something is there. Yeah. But have you ever had like a silver lining type of moment, like something bad happened, you're like, but at least this is still going on for me.
And I hate this part about myself.
Glass half empty, aren't you?
Yeah, once something happens bad, I kind of just dump it. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for the fact that some of the, I guess you can call them traumatic things that happened to me when I was, when I moved out on my own, when you're broke, your lights get turned off, all these different things, right? Like those things, they stick with me to make me remember to always come up with a plan. So, I mean, that would be the silver lining. Come up with a plan for everything. Try to come up with your own safety net, for all your different situations. But a lot of the things I dump them on my problems. I dump them because with I guess in the military, right? You just kind of persevere through a lot of things, right?
Or your resilience is very high.
Yeah. So then I forget what I was, what really caused me a problem. And I mean, you just like so say take work for instance, right? At one point, work is like super stressful, and you to the point where you wanted to quit, right? But you don't, because you actually persevered through it, and then you realize, oh, it's not that bad, and then you end up forgetting the whole thing altogether, like what was really the problem. And from the military, like deployment was one of those things that taught me that, like, yeah, it sucks right now, but it's not that bad. And that's what ended up happening. But then again, it still falls in line with the adversity, right? I didn't create the adversity, but the adversity that I had in my life created a callus, right, to toughen my skin, right? And then and that's why I let a lot of things roll off, and I use the idea of, how when people say, hey, you go to sleep, because it's not an idea. Actually, they say that's actually what happens when you go to sleep. You actually refreshed, and you lose certain things in your memory, like that cause you stress or cause you whatever. And what I do is, like, if something that's that super stressful, I try to make sure I get a good night's sleep, which is hard to do, but I still try, right? And as time goes on, it disappears. That was no longer stress, and I'm actually focused on the task at hand. So, like, I'm not saying that I haven't had a silver lining. I don't pay attention to it.
You don't focus on it. Yeah.
And so then that's, and
I think it's more because you don't focus on the stress.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it just is, right? It's not like good or bad. It just is.
Yeah. So it's just stress. And then I was watching a documentary. It's explained on Netflix, and basically it talked about stress. And one of the as like a monk that was on there, and he basically says, like, stress is part of life, right? You treat it as it's your neighbor, it's your best friend or whatever, right? Because it's part of life. And if you treat it like that, then it won't consume you, right?
Yeah, it won't scare you.
Yeah,
because you're not making it bigger than it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, thoughts of that, like that always pops in my mind. So when things get stressful, so then I just kind of suck it up. And not to say that it's not bothering me in some way, because you never know down the line, it may have caused the problem, but I've learned how to adjust to it.
Yeah. I think it's, a lot of people, the way they frame stress is that, like, oh, I don't want to be stressed, right? Just like, I don't want to be in debt, or I don't want to be fat, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But what that really builds in them is this, like, statement of belief, where if I say I don't want to be stressed, when I am stressed, I now have additional stress to it, or I now have additional worry to it, because I didn't want that situation. Now I'm in that situation, and it's adding more and more stress. Similar to the thing where, like, I don't want to be in debt. Now, when you're in debt, whether it's good or bad, you have this, like, overwhelming feeling of, like, insecurity of being able to pay off that debt, or being able to utilize your talents to pay off that debt, right? Or leverage the debt. And I just think it's things that we kind of build on ourselves, like we said, like mental blockers that aren't necessarily, like, they're not statements of fact, right? They're statements of belief, right? Where, like, if we kind of just say it is, like not that stress is good or bad, it's just like, it's stress, and I'll deal with it like I would deal with anything else, right? Just like I would deal with, like I said, like stuff like brushing your teeth, right? I don't have a good or bad feeling towards it, right? It's just brushing my teeth. It's just an action. Yeah. So if you treated more things like that, there wouldn't be, like, all these other additional tertiary worries about stuff.
Yeah. And that is our point. Reframe stress as a challenge. I accidentally transitioned into that, by the way. I was,
no. Too smooth.
Yeah.
Couldn't even tell.
Yeah. So, I mean, because that's, like I said, with the last point about the silver lining, it actually, to me, went hand in hand with, just dealing with stress. And then, so we actually, you see it as a challenge. Like, hey, bring it on. Because my growth, I can't lie, my growth actually came from putting myself in stressful situations. It's never been where I kept it safe. And then, like I was talking to my wife the other day, that I feel like there's a candle burning in me, but I want that torch back that was burning in me. And I feel like that it's from, I've leveled out to a certain point where I'm ready for a new challenge. I'm ready for a new stress. You know what I'm saying? And I know stress is, people always look at stress as bad, but sometimes stress is good. It keeps you sharp in a sense, right? Yeah. You're not sitting there waiting. You're not complacent, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of things happen that's bad when you're complacent. You don't see when something's coming, and you do the wrong thing accidentally. So So using it as a challenge than something that was hindering you is so much better. Like reframing it is like the best. I think is the best thing to do with stress.
Yeah. No. So like what my kind of part into that is kind of also like the silver lining portion is that, when I had the pipe burst and stuff, of course, it caused stress. And, my silver lining was like, hey, I get a new flooring, insurance is going to cover it. The other part that I started thinking, I was like, because I never try to think of, why did this happen? I always say like, why couldn't this happen? Or why shouldn't this have happened? Yeah. Right. And to me, it was just like another opening where like, I kind of realized I was getting too comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I was like, and I'm not a religious person or anything. It was kind of me like saying like, someone thinks I'm being too comfortable, so I need more stress in my life, right? So why not have the pipe burst? Like, just add a little bit more stress, and it just is, right? Like I said, reframing stress is a challenge, right? I don't shy away from it, and maybe it's just me being a guy or me being me, but I just think it's seeing it in a different way other than a challenge is like kind of foreign to me now. Like I never see or I never understand how people can be like so finicky, so like stressed out or buzzed out. Like you probably see people at work where they're like all freaking out or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like something needs to be done now, and they're just like going crazy, and you're like you can just calm down. It's not that serious, and even if it is serious, like we can take care of it. It's not like a huge problem.
Yeah. No, it's there are a lot of times it isn't that big of a problem, because and maybe that's because I use the extreme in comparison, right?
No,
like
me too.
So what I would do is like, well, does anyone have a gun in my head right now? So I would think that's extreme stress, right?
Yeah.
And
that's exactly, and that's the way you should frame it. Because like, other than that, why be stressed about it?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna die right here. Like, is someone like about to shoot me?
Yeah.
No, then nothing is gonna hurt me as much as that.
Yeah. So, and that's probably coming from the military, because like that is your option. If you don't put yourself in a situation where you're not complacent, that's your alternative is death. So like, especially while you're deployed, so you have to kind of stay on point. And that's why, right away, you don't understand why your unit would actually keep your stress levels high. You think, oh man, they're messing with me. They're not. But then in a sense, no, they're trying to keep you from being complacent. That's why they were still scheduling PT tests, while you're still deployed and all this other stuff. And it's just to keep you from getting to that point where you will cause probably in a sense more deaths, and it'll be those simple deaths, right? Vehicle accidents on post or whatever, because you're too complacent. You're not thinking about everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's why, like, the statistics are for, like you say, like car accidents specifically happen within like a mile or 2 miles of your own home, because you're used to that route you're taking, right? You don't expect something new to happen. So you may get into an accident because you're not, like you said, as aware at that moment.
Yeah. All right, man. I guess we're getting down to our frugal and cheap. All right. This one here is going somewhere for a free service. Sorry, I'm messing that up, man. Yeah. Going somewhere for a free service. Your example is like going to a discount tire or for a free tire rotation. I don't see anything wrong with that.
So like I did that because literally that's what I was doing yesterday. Because most places, like if you get an oil change, they'll ask if you need a tire rotation, and they typically charge you. I don't know what it typically goes for, but yeah, they'll ask you for a tire rotation. Like, so I either say yes or say no. I'll just take it to a place where I know I can get it for free.
Yeah.
Right. But is that frugal or cheap? And the reason why I say that is because if you go someplace and that's all you're going there for, like, this is a business. They're not paying, like, you're not paying anything for it. Would you, like, I don't know, is that frugal? Is that cheap? I
mean, if you have the time, especially if it's like, so say on the way home, right? You had somebody else do one service and then you go somewhere else to do another service. And basically, if I guess you have the time for it, this is kind of leisure. You're not really like cutting stuff out of your day. It's like you're not messing everything up. I don't know. I think that in a sense, I guess you can sit it along the frugal side. But if it's messing things up and you're still trying to do it and it doesn't make sense, and you're like, I mean, honestly, I do my own tire rotation. And all you got to do.
So what you're saying is that you can do my tire rotation. That's what I just heard.
For a fee.
Yeah. Why would I go to you, man?
Exactly. Exactly. So like, no, I do a lot of my own maintenance. So it saves me time. I can't do a lot of tire work because it doesn't make sense for me to purchase a machine to actually take tires off
rebound the rim.
It doesn't make sense to have that. I've done it before, but it doesn't make sense to do it. Have the equipment here at home. So basically, I take it to a tire shop. It's usually the small mom and pop tire shops, and they're happy would charge you $60 or whatever, right? And then they mount your tires and balance them, and because I do it all the time. I remember I needed to replace some sensors in the tires. Just same thing. I bring it to them. I already purchased the sensors. For $60, they take all the sensors. They take all the tires off, put the sensors in, and then put the tires back on. Fill them up with air and rebalance them. And I'm like, I'm A-okay with that, and they don't take long either. So, because I'm already thinking of buying some new tires for one of my cars because I want fresh, sticky tires, because I was trying to floor it one day and the tires started to spin. I was like, I need some new tires. And I'm already thinking, I'm like, let me buy these tires, and obviously tires aren't cheap, but it's if you can buy them online, it's usually a discount, and then you take them to somebody. They usually just do the work, and if they charge $60 to do this again, I'm like, well, I'm still winning.
So I only said that, and I think it's the time suck is the biggest difference. Doing it from a place like, say, if you're already doing an oil change and then they offer a tire rotation, it may not be free, but it's going to be quick or quicker than you having to travel someplace, get it done, and discount tire, especially if you don't have an appointment, it's typically like long waits. Yeah. So I think my wait was like 3 hours. I was only there for like an hour and a half, but like the initial wait was 3 hours. But I had a computer, I had Wi-Fi, so I was good. Like I was chilling, I was doing work. So in my opinion, it didn't like take out time of my day. It's just maybe it wasn't my house, so it didn't have as much of a comfortable setting, but I was okay with it.
Yeah. Well, in this case, I still think it's frugal.
Frugal it is.
Yeah. All right, man. You want to close this out?
Yes, sir. All right, everyone. Well, thank you all for listening. This is Jay and Craig signing off the Troubleshooting Life podcast. If you like any of this content, please like and subscribe and share it out with anyone you think could benefit from this. And we'll see you all next week.
See you next week.